Hello everyone, Stormer1 here. Today we got the potential for a little winter storm tomorrow night and into Tuesday across parts of central and eastern Kentucky. We also got big flooding concerns throughout basically all of next week, maybe even lasting into early next week as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the long range pattern as well. So we're going to get started with the watch warning advisory display across the country. Overall it's mostly quiet. Got some winter weather alerts down up towards Montana, North Dakota, even across parts of the upper Midwest. Got a winter storm watch for most of Kansas, and we also got a winter storm watch for most of the Mid-Atlantic, and it even includes a couple of counties in far northeastern Kentucky, and that's our winter storm potential coming in late tomorrow night and into Tuesday. So let's not waste any time and talk about that. So we're going to get started with the 18Z NAM model run. So really most of the day tomorrow is going to stay dry. It's going to be a chillier day out there. 30s across the north, 40s for most of us across Kentucky. So overall it's going to be kind of a chillier day here. You're going to have some clouds coming around as well as high pressure tries to control off to our east. But by Monday night, we start to see some moisture start to increase here back towards Missouri and Arkansas, even back towards Oklahoma by tomorrow evening, and that moisture eventually comes into Kentucky. And this is where things get interesting. So as this rain shield starts to come in, it starts to interact with this shallow cold air that we're going to have in place kind of up through here. Some marginal cold temperatures out there. When I be marginal, you're talking about temperatures maybe generally 30 to 33 degrees. So marginally cold temperatures out there. It's not very cold air like we've had back in January. But you'll notice here across most of southern Kentucky here, it's going to stay as all rain down there. But if you go generally along the north of 64, you may be able to stay as mostly snow for this event, and that's where the winter storm potential starts to exist. And you can kind of see here how it pretty much continues basically all day of Tuesday out there. Eventually the system moves out by Tuesday night. You may have some lingering moisture Wednesday morning. We get a brief break before the next system begins to come in here. So you can see here how bullish the NAM is. It's got some heavier snow in there, and this is not going to be a dry snow. This is actually going to be a very wet snow. We got a lot of moisture to work with this system here, so this is going to be a very wet snow out there. Very wet snow with some big snowflakes out there. That's the type of snow we're going to be talking about with this potential winter storm. Let's check out some other models here, see if they got a different opinion on this. This is the high-res NAM. So pretty much the same thing here for the most part. The only difference is that it's a little bit further south compared to the NAM model. But you can see here, generally across most of southern Kentucky states is all rain. During along the north of 64, pretty much stays as mainly snow in there, and you can see that big winter storm moving into the mid-Atlantic out there. And folks off to our east is likely going to get some big snowfall numbers out there compared to what we could potentially see out here. And here's the HRRR model, and the HRRR model doesn't go through the entire event just yet, but you can see here how again the Tuesday morning that snow begins to break out on the northern edge of this precipitation shield. And as you can see, as you get to Tuesday afternoon, you can see this type of rain and snow mix kind of get mixed in there. That's because of the very marginal temperatures out there. If I were to get a sounding, let's say maybe like out here in east central Kentucky, you can see here how warm the temperatures are. And you can see here air temperature surface 38 degrees. So that likely would be too warm for snow. But if I were to go to like Lexington where the model thinks it's snowing, you can see here now the surface air temperature is 35 degrees, but if you go a little bit farther up in the atmosphere, you're not far away from the freezing line, and you can see how marginal the temperatures are. Basically, from 850 millibars down to the surface is some very marginal cold temperatures out there, where they're just right around that freezing mark. That 32-degree line is this blue dash line right here, if you see my mouse. And you know what, to make it easier to see, I'll highlight this in red. Your freezing line is basically right here, and you can see between the 850 millibar line, which is right here, and below that to the surface is where your temperature profile is right on that fine line of the freezing line. And that's where the forecast becomes very difficult, because weather models are usually not going to be exactly right with temperatures. If they're off by 1 or even 2 degrees, it can make a big difference on your outcome out there. So if we were to say, if this model here is running a couple of degrees too cold, then that rain and snow line might be much farther north. It might be more like, north of 64. But if it's a little bit colder, like say with the HIRIS NAM, it's much farther to the south. It's more focused just along and just south of 64 with that rain and snow line. So you kind of get the gist of why can be a very difficult forecast, because 1 or 2 degrees make a big difference, and we know weather models are usually not exactly right on temperatures, especially even with the temperature profiles from the surface all the way up into the atmosphere. They can be off 1 to 2 degrees, and that can make a big difference on your outcome out there. One other model we'll look into is the HIRIS Canadian. And I will say, this model here has been trending a little bit colder compared to previous runs here, so that is worth mentioning. But despite that, you can see how far north it gets that rain and snow line. It gets it just north of 64 towards the end of that system out there. However, early on, that rain and snow line is south of 64. So some of us will start off as moderate, maybe even heavy snow, but then we transition over just plain old rain. There might be a little bit of freezing rain mixed in there. If you get a snowpack, that could keep your temperatures down around the freezing mark just a little bit longer. And for as strong as that warm air advection is, which you can see how strong this warm air advection is. This is your 546 line, which is basically temperatures above freezing in the upper parts of the atmosphere. You can see here, if you're kind of along and south of that 546 line, temperatures are too warm for snow. But the 540 line is the key line for snow production. You can see how far north it is. But if you do get a little bit of a snowpack on the ground, let's say maybe a couple inches of snow, you may be able to stay below freezing just a little bit longer. But as that warm nose goes over the snowpack, there might be a brief period of freezing rain. And when we're talking about freezing rain, it's not going to be very much out there. We're not talking about like an ice storm or anything, but there may be a brief period of freezing rain before you actually get to being, just a general rain out there. But then again, this is going to be a very difficult setup of the forecast here. You can see here how some of these models here are dramatically different for certain areas here. So I would say that areas, north of 64 will likely stay as all snow. But areas along and just south of 64 is the main area of uncertainty. This could be a boom or bust type of situation for these areas, in here. You could either see, maybe an inch of snow and then transition over to rain, or if the temperatures are colder than forecasted, then you may get an actual winter storm. Now, when we're talking about winter storm, we're talking about like a low-end one. So you're maybe talking about maybe up around 4 inches of snow. So you're talking about your bust potential may be a coating to an inch to a boom that could be up around 4 inches, which is a pretty good difference out there. And really just south of this, some areas may not see any snow at all, and that would be across southern Kentucky. Areas across southern Kentucky, unfortunately, you guys down here will likely stay as all rain for this event here. And here's the National Weather Service forecast for snow. And you can see here where some of those higher amounts could be located. And it may be around the Bluegrass region and points east. Where we do have a winter storm watch, the National Service of Charleston, West Virginia, has potential for 4+ inch amounts, especially towards the Ashland area. So it's very possible some areas could overachieve. This could be an overachieving snow event for some areas out there. And I think the best chance of that for overachieving snow would probably be somewhere in here. Though it's very possible some of these areas in here could also be in play as well. It just depends on how far north that rain and snow line gets. If you end up staying all snow, somewhere in this area in here, somehow if you manage to stay as all snow, that you may overachieve on some of these snowfall numbers. So it's going to be a very difficult forecast, unfortunately, just because of how marginal the temperatures are going to be. If we end up being a degree warmer than forecasted, then this could dramatically shift these numbers here farther to the north. Well, I wouldn't really say dramatically, but you'll notice a northern shift on the snowfall numbers. But obviously you can see across southern Kentucky here, basically nothing here. So really the area to watch here for winter storm potential would probably be in these areas, kind of right in here. I would want to say approximately in those areas in there will be the areas to monitor. And this is a forecast that I made last night here. And obviously some changes will probably be needed. And the next time I update this, I'll update this probably tomorrow. But from last night, the modeling liked it in this dark blue shade. I might need to move it a little bit north, but I'm going to give the models a little bit more time before I update this map here, which I probably the next update will probably be my snowfall forecast. So you'll probably see a different layout out there. So yeah, that is the winter storm potential, and it's going to be difficult to forecast, unfortunately, just because of how marginal those temperatures would be. Oh yeah, another thing about that system there, almost forgot. Another thing about that system is for areas that stay as all rain across southern Kentucky, may end up getting a pretty good amount of rain out of this system here. And as the Hurricane Nam here loads here, it's going to take a minute to load here, but you'll see a large area of 1 to 2 inches approximately in here. And where our grounds are so saturated across some of these areas in here, 1 to 2 inches of rain is enough to create some local high water issues out there, especially in this region in here, which has been hit pretty good by some heavy rainfall over the last several days. And here's the rainfall forecast from the Hurricane Nam. You can see here it's a widespread 1 to 2 inches, so locally higher amounts as possible. Lower amounts the farther north you get, but some of that will be in the form of snow out there. But if this would have been an all rain event for the areas up here, you probably could have seen around 1 inch of rain. So this gets to show you of how much moisture there is to work with this system out there. So let's talk about beyond Tuesday's system. There's going to be a lot more systems that come in behind this one here. So here's the first system from the Canadian model, and here comes the next one right here. So we get a surface low that develops down in the deep south here. This is going to be a big winter storm for some of our friends up to the northwest, where you saw that winter storm watch for Kansas. That's what it is for this system right here. And you can see periods of heavy snow could be possible for Missouri, and you'll see it get extended up towards Illinois and eventually towards Michigan as this low pressure system starts to strengthen. And as it strengthens, winds will pick up as well. So this system here could be a wind maker for some of us out there. But this will also bring another round of some periods of light to moderate rainfall that could also bring some local high water concerns. Temperatures will definitely be colder behind that, so for your day on Friday, it's going to be a wintry-like day. But then, as you get into next weekend, here comes another system that comes through. This will bring another round of light to moderate, maybe even times heavy rain, especially towards the south. And then the cold air starts crashing behind it, could end as some snow behind it. And then here comes another potential system behind that. So really, at least for the next 10 days, you got 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 systems over the next 10 days. So that's a lot of systems to track over a 10-day period. And really, for every system that comes through Kentucky, will have potential to bring some flooding issues. And if we were to look into the European ensembles mean for rainfall, you can see there's some pretty high numbers out there. For the ensembles standpoint, these are some pretty high numbers. And you can see here there is a large area of 4 to maybe upwards of 7 inches of rain out there. And that does include parts of south central and southeastern Kentucky. The rest of the state is generally 2 to 4 inches with some 1 to 2 inch amounts for far northern and northwestern parts of Kentucky. But still, this is a lot of rain to get through over the next 10 days. And if you were to look into the Weather Prediction Center outlook for the next 7 days, it's more than that. And you can see here across parts of south central and southeastern Kentucky, you could see anywhere from 4 to upwards of 6 inches of rain over the next 7 days. And check out these numbers down towards Mississippi, Alabama, northern Georgia, and eastern Tennessee, and even the mountains of the Carolinas. Could see anywhere from 6 to upwards of 9 inches of rain over the next 7 days. So there's going to be some major flooding concerns for our friends down towards the south, but up here in Kentucky, we'll also have some big flooding concerns across parts of south central and southeastern Kentucky. And here's a map that I also made yesterday. So this basically represents the flooding potential for the next 7 to 10 days. Areas in the red is the area of greatest concern. They got a very high probability of seeing some flooding issues over the next 7 to 10 days, either if that's a form of flash flooding or river flooding or even aerial flooding. You guys can see all 3 types of flooding in those areas, and that's the area of greatest concern. Areas in yellow, which would include places like Bowling Green, Hopkinsville, E-Town, up through Lexington, Maysville, up towards Moorhead and Ashland. It's a medium chance for these areas here. It's probably more of a way of some river flooding issues and also aerial flooding. Flash flooding potential will probably be a little bit lower in these areas, but these areas can still have a pretty decent chance of seeing some flooding issues. And then finally, areas in the green, which is basically falls down the Ohio River from Cincinnati through Louisville down into Paducah. There's a low chance for flooding issues, but if there is any flooding issues, most of that will probably come from the rivers out there, because a lot of this rain here that falls across southeastern Kentucky falls along some of these rivers here. As an example, the Kentucky River runs through here and it connects up with the Ohio River, and some of these rivers out here can certainly rise a little bit as areas in southeastern Kentucky get several inches of rain over the next 7 to 10 days. So, and personally, this is my biggest concern with this upcoming pattern. It's not the snow, it's not the wind, it's the rain and the flooding. That is my primary concern over the next 7 to 10 days. So this is something we got to pay attention very closely over the next couple of days. And last but not least, let's talk about a little bit about the long-range pattern. There is still some winter left in the tank. I don't think our winter storm for tomorrow night and into Tuesday is going to be our last chance of seeing snow. As you saw from the Canadian Mall show, another chance for snow, I think early next week. And you can see why. This is your Madden-Julian oscillation forecast. We're currently in phase 6, which is a milder phase for us. We tend to stay on the warmer side, but as we get into phase 7, that's when we start to trend a little bit cooler, especially towards our northwest. But as soon as you get into phase 8, which happens around February 14th through the 20th or the 21st, that's when the colder temperatures start to really settle in. And I think that's when we really start to see winter chances come back. But you can also see how it goes towards phase 1, which is also another cold phase for us. So winter may continue through almost the rest of the month. And of course, if this is correct, it goes into phase 2 and eventually back into the circle for early March. But there's a lot of uncertainty when you get towards early March. But there is still some winter left in the tank, and I think we could get more snow chances after Tuesday's system. So I don't think we're necessarily done with winter just yet. And you can see how the European ensembles respond to that very well. And this is the pattern over the next 5 days. Here's your southeast ridge out here that covers most of the southeast. You got a big trough that settles in across the west and really across the north out there. And of course, a lot of blocking way up north, up around Alaska, Greenland, the Arctic Circle. There's a ton of blocking out there, and when that happens, you disrupt the polar vortex, and that shoves the colder air farther to the south. And as we continue to get deeper into mid and eventually late February, you start to see what happens there, how the European ensembles start to respond with the changing of the MJO. And when that happens, you see this colder trend happen in the eastern part of the country. That southeast ridge starts to back off, and that colder air starts to shift a little bit more to the east. We still have this blocking here, up around the Arctic Circle that also still covers Greenland, but we're also starting to get kind of this positive PNA pattern just off the west coast. And when that happens, that pushes your cold air farther to the east as well. And you can see here how that may linger, perhaps going into late February. And if you look into temperature anomalies, you can see there's a lot better where your cold air starts to progress to the east over time. And you can see there towards mid to late February, a lot of this cold air starts to become more focused east of the Rocky Mountains out there. And then when we're talking about precipitation, you can see here really for the next 1 to 2 weeks, we stay above normal for precipitation. But as we get towards mid to late February, the precipitation, at least for the rain anyway, starts to back off. And of course, as you trend colder, the precipitation anomaly starts to back off as well. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't see snow. You don't need above normal precipitation to get snow during the winter. So I think some more snow chances will still be on the way here very soon after Tuesday's system. And we'll see how this progresses as we get closer. And we'll check out the Comet Prediction Center before I end this video. This is the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. It's got a colder look for the Ohio Valley. Precipitation, obviously, is going to be above normal. Days 8 for 14, we trend a little bit drier. We're near normal for precipitation, which isn't bad for snow, but we do stay on the colder side, and this is from February 17th through the 23rd. So then again, I don't think we're done with winter just yet. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit the like button. If you really like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you guys got any questions, put a comment section down below. I'll answer you guys questions. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.